Hello and welcome to this edition of the Bitcoin and Global Finance Podcast with me, Jason Dean. Now, we've all been following what's been going on in Ukraine over the last 48 hours. It's hard to believe it's even been 48 hours. I'm not sure it is actually. May only be 36 hours. Many of us have been wondering what's been happening with Russia. So I'm pleased to say that I'm joined today by Max Matreniski. Hopefully I've got your name right this time, Max. I've known you for some time, so I should be getting it right by now. And he's CEO of Cyberian Mine, which is based in Irkutsk in Russia. And he's kindly agreed to spend some time to talk to me today. In English, I should point out, because if we did this in Russian, it probably wouldn't go very well. But Max, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to have this chat with you. And I must give a small disclaimer that I'm not an expert, neither in politics nor in economics. Yeah, but there are some events, and actually I had quite it was difficult for me to come here to talk about all these things as I'm not an expert, and it is a very sensitive, emotional topic, and but just I could not like stay silent, and I think that's the least that I can do in this situation, is just to express my thoughts and share what I believe many Russian people feel these days.
Well, that's fabulous. And that's all we can ask for, because, I mean, the economic and political situation is extremely complex, and we don't really know what's going on in the minds of these people. But, you know, it's just your personal view as a Russian citizen, I guess, as a Russian businessman as well. There's the economic angle that there's probably a lot of people be really interested to hear. Now, I mean, Max, you and I have known each other for a little bit, and it seems incredible. It was only a few months ago that you and I were together in Irkutsk. And that seems now impossible that would happen again anytime soon. But we actually did a podcast from there at the Hotel Marusa in the town centre. And I do remember from talking to you that you, for someone who is you know, a lay person, you have quite a good understanding of sort of Russian political history. I was fascinated by some of the things you were telling us and your experiences of being in Russia. So as I say, I think there's a few people who'll be interested in your views today. But my understanding is when this happened, you were actually outside Russia anyway, because you do travel a lot for work, don't you? So you're not in Russia right now, is that correct?
Yes, right. Actually, I'm currently in the place where which is quite distant. I'm in Bali island. Was supposed to be enjoying my like retreat, or like a long retreat, because I moved here for my plan is to stay here for half a year probably, and yeah, but anyways, we all live in the modern world, and the news spreads. News can get you wherever you are.
Really. Yeah, it's not like the old days. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are now. You can keep up to date. But I mean, do you worry about going back to Russia right now? I mean, do you think you'd be able to get in no problem? I mean, we're already hearing about flights being banned left, right, and center. And I mean, do you even want to go back right now?
Oh, well, actually, I lived for 5 years in Germany, and even though, like, before going to Bali, I spent almost a year in St. Petersburg, and I do consider Russia my motherland and my country, and I'm not sure if I want to go to Russia right now, and I don't have these plans like work and personal life wise, but I don't think there will be a problem. So I'm pretty sure I will be able to go there. one of the personal issues and concerns that I'm having right now, that my daughter is studying in Berlin. She just switched to another university, and she's right now with me here in Bali.
Okay.
And Europe was discussing revoking visas from Russian citizens, and even though she has like a long-term stay visa in Germany, that is kind of concern that I'm having right now. So she might not be able to go back to study to German university, but hopefully that will all be resolved somehow.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we've had that question raised in our UK Parliament here just yesterday, because some of the opposition party here were actually pushing for Boris Johnson to cancel visas of Russians in the UK. And I thought his answer actually was, it's not often I agree with him, but I thought his answer was very good, because he said, well, look, we're not assuming that all Russians are bad people. We shouldn't punish ordinary Russian people for something that their leader has done. So, you know, there was some consideration for this, but it's not something they actively want to do. So hoping perhaps that would be the same in other parts of Europe. But I guess in your case, that's quite a real issue then, isn't it? Because that could directly affect you or your daughter.
Yes, definitely it can. And yeah, the whole situation actually, one of the ideas that I wanted to convey via this podcast is that we do not support this course of actions that Putin is taking. And I personally do not know any single person that supports that. Well, actually, actually, I do know.
Really? You know someone who actually supports this? That's an interesting point of view. I mean, that's not something we're hearing very much over here.
Yes, among my like first circle and among my friends, there is not a single person that would support that. So that's why I want to make it clear that Putin is not Russia and Russia is not Putin, and Russian citizens, I believe most of them do not support this. But there is quite a lot of people that in Russia, mostly older generation, that get all their news via from the TV.
Russian TV.
Russian TV.
Oh dear.
And
yeah. Okay.
If you have these as your only source of information, you get a totally different picture. And actually, the person that I was referring to is actually my mom.
Oh, really? So, wow. Yeah.
Yes.
That must lead to some interesting conversations, I guess.
Well, she does not support war. She's very peaceful person, but the way that Russian government and Russian television that is controlled by the government frames it gives a totally different picture.
Yeah, I have to say, Max, we've been hearing that here as well, because we have seen actually some of the Russian TV footage, and it's incredibly different, the message that they're putting out. And it's quite terrifying, but there's not much free press in Russia from what I understand. There's not much independent press, I should say. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, and in the last I believe like 6 months, there were incredibly strong measures against it, against independent media. There were laws and like really war on independent media. So every single media that is financed, and even like if you post something on YouTube and get some revenue from there, is considered international agent, and we have like some separate laws for that. So you have to mark yourself as an international agent, and there are like many journalists that went either to jail or were just kicked out of the country, or their like medias were cancelled, and yeah, I don't know if that was like planned that long, that like was this situation part of this long plan? But yes, definitely the like in Russia they call it like core people, the core people that kind of support mostly Putin, and that's usually like older generation. That's people that are not very friendly with the internet, and
I see.
So this picture, yeah.
So in your mum's case, then she's totally anti-war, but I suppose she likes the idea of Ukraine being part of Russia, is because that's the kind of more traditional view. Have I understood that correctly? But she doesn't want the war part, but she likes the idea of that. Is that, have I got that right?
Not really. The way they put it is that some parts of Russia or Ukraine, and there are Nazis in Ukraine, and we have to fight Nazis. And of course, my mom is against Nazis, and if the TV says that that's all only because we need to get rid of Nazis in Ukraine, then we have to do it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense now. I see where she's coming from. That's actually quite an understandable, particularly as you say, if these are people of an older generation, you just have that one news source, which we know is controlled by the state. I mean, so you're over there in Bali. What was your reaction when you heard that Putin had ordered this attack? I mean, did you actually expect him to do it? Did it shock you? How does it compare to, say, Crimea in 2014 or Georgia before that? I mean, there's a lot of questions there I've just thrown at you in one hit, so unpack it how you like. But really, I'm just trying to gauge a sense of how it made you feel.
Well, I was following the whole development from the very beginning, and yes, I'm listening to the news, and I like to burst my bubble, so I listen to both sides of the aisle. So, but I did not believe that it would happen till the very end. I do understand that Putin has like some issues, and he could use Ukraine to push a little bit his agenda against NATO. Because NATO is kind of closing in from the West and getting closer to Russian borders, and Ukraine is kind of strategic element, and if Ukraine would become a part of NATO, that would be dangerous for Russia, well, as Putin sees it. But yeah, I thought that they might like do some legal tricks, like acknowledging that these countries kind of have to be separate, and like support these like two countries, like Donetsk and Lugansk republics, probably would pose some, I don't know, some pressure on like in other directions, like when negotiating with US or Europe, like about gas deals. But I would never believe that he would do that. He would actually start a war. And that was really, really shocking to me. Yeah, and if you compare it to the situation with Crimea in 2014, it was absolutely different. Actually, most people in Russia supported this thing with Crimea. I can say that because, but there were key differences. First of all, historically, Crimea really did belong to Russia for a long time, and there was like a strategic, we had a Black Sea fleet there, so we had all our ships and war bases based there. So, and Crimea was really inhabited by Russians, like 90% of population was Russian, and there was like a mess with the Ukrainian government. It was not clear who will take over the power, so it was like a coup, if you wish. So, and it was done without a single shot. It was done, no blood, no killings, like the green uniform, polite people came and take over and even tried to legitimize with like referendum, how do you call it in English, the global vote of the whole population. So, and yeah, it like later, of course, we all suffered because of that, because of sanctions, and it really hit us economically. Like a few months later, ruble lost half of its value. So every Russian citizen, every Russian felt it, in one's pocket.
And actually, the ruble never really recovered from that point. It's stayed roughly the same since then, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Totally. It never went back, and well, there's no ground to going back, and now it's much worse. So there is no economical sense, there's no historical sense to do that. We never had these regions as like Russian regions, and I don't understand what do we need there. Really, it is usually to find the reasoning, to find the cause of actions, you have to follow the money.
Always follow the money.
Russia loses money on that, loses a lot, and we all pay for that. And that's just a start, and I don't know how further will it go, and it just doesn't make sense. I listened to many journalists talking about this, and they try to grasp like the breadcrumbs of reason behind all of this, and majority just cannot, and it just looks like someone just got crazy.
Well, it does. I mean, I should be clear, and you've probably seen this yourself in international press, but this is being described as Putin's war or the Kremlin's war rather than a Russian war, because the sense is that we are, it isn't supported by Russians, as you say, and it sounds like you've had some contact with people over there, and we have seen videos, I'm sure you have as well, of demonstrators in Russia actually quite bravely, I think, going out and saying we don't want this war, and then swiftly being removed by the powers that be. And I guess that goes back to what you were saying earlier about these new laws that came in recently about, curbing a little bit free speech and what people think of the government. I mean, how realistic is that? Does it feel sort of dangerous almost in Russia to sort of speak up against it right now?
Yes, absolutely. And first it started actually with Navalny and the oppression of opposition. So Navalny is in jail, as you know. So and everyone who followed him and everyone who joined his organization, Anti-Corruption Fund, is declared now an extremist and terrorist. So this just saying that you support Navalny is already enough to get you to jail. So and everything that you can do on the streets, like, is extremely harshly punished straight away. And even in this situation, like when people know that they will be punished, that they will penalized in many different ways, they still cannot stay silent. They go out as I heard today, there were protests like in 52 Russian cities, and I know my friends. I know quite a few people actually that went out to protest that, just to say that no to war. I know that around 450 professors and academics signed a petition, like open letter, to stop the war, to make their position clear that they believe that it's a war that should not be, that we are not supporting that. There were a lot of Russian artists, writers, journalists that also joined this protest or just declared that we are against the war.
I mean, that's quite a brave move to actually publicly put your name on a document like that. I think it certainly sounds like. I mean, do you think Putin would ever take notice of this? I mean, he's been in power now, what, 22 years? I think it is something like that. It's a long time. He's got to feel a little bit like he can do whatever he likes. So presumably he's not overly worried at the moment anyway about what the Russian people think. I mean, what's your sense of that?
Sometimes it does feel that he's thinking a lot about what people think about him. Okay. And he's trying sometimes to do something to be liked. But recently, it just seems to me personally that he just stopped caring at all. And even knowing that it would succumb Russia into chaos, he still like pushes the button. So I think he doesn't care anymore.
Well, I mean, you know, the fact that he's been in power so long is probably a factor in that, I would guess, but we can't know obviously what's in Putin's mind at the moment. So, you know, we can only speculate. But let's just talk about, and I really appreciate your honesty there, Max. It's really interesting to hear that as someone who's you know, been to your country. And it's a fabulous country. I mean, really loved it while I was there. Don't get me wrong. But so I know this must be in some ways quite difficult to talk about some of this, because I think I would feel the same way. But I'd also be interested in your view on some of the economics of this, because I mean, yesterday, you know, for example, we saw a big crash on the Moscow exchange, which obviously dropped by, it was about 45%, I think, at one point. We saw it come up again, I think, just before we started speaking. It was about 15% up on yesterday, which is interesting to see. And the ruble has actually held its ground so far, more or less. You probably saw the Swiss financiers yesterday downgraded Russians' bond status to zero value. And we've got now more sanctions coming through, announced by all the Western powers. Now, many people say that these sanctions don't go far enough. But I mean, do you think what's been announced will affect Russians, ordinary Russians on the street? And so what's your view on that?
For starters, sanctions work very well for democratic countries where you have elections. So you put some sanctions on ordinary people, they feel it in their pockets, and then they can vote for someone else. It's not the case in Russia. So where elections are all rigged, and it's absolutely impossible to change anything globally like by voting. So we really we do feel sanctions, like all Russians do feel that in their pockets, but they cannot really do that via like tool set of a civil society. So there's nothing you can do about it. So probably after Crimea, it was even helping Putin to unite Russian minds against the West. All those
and
guys,
that makes sense.
just,
because you said that was generally well supported, so it was seen as, we're in this together. Okay, we've taken some sanctions, but it was the right thing to do. So that was, I guess, the sort of feeling at that time.
Yes.
Do you think it would affect Russians in their day-to-day lives? And so what we've seen so far, maybe not immediately, but it probably will have an effect at some point. But I mean, interestingly, everyone expected America to just switch off the SWIFT system, the banking system, for Russian banks, but we haven't seen that yet. Do you have any idea why that might be the case? Why that move didn't happen? I mean, just from your perspective, would you have expected to have seen that happen?
Well, there are a few things that they can do, and maybe they will do them later. Like SWIFT system is just one of them, and actually, I don't believe that SWIFT is that important. So there are different. SWIFT is basically a communication system, and you can use other ways to communicate, like a message from one bank to another, and there are other ways, even though it will make life more difficult. But what they already did, put sanctions on seven, I believe seven biggest.
I think so. I think it's 7 now. Yeah.
Biggest banks in Russia, and they already can not do anything in euro, dollar, and Japanese yen. So I believe that is hard enough. And maybe it affects banking business even harder than switching off SWIFT would do. So, okay. But I can just say from my personal perspective what I am concerned about.
Well, tell us about that, Max.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as a person, I have a business that includes like German part and Russian part, and they are interconnected. And I am a person that is a Russian citizen that lives in Bali. I have a few credit cards, like a few banking products from German banks and from Russian banks. And we do have a very nice community here of Russian-speaking people. By the way, both Ukrainians and Russians, and yeah, we are all together. So we never felt like any like aggression or anything bad towards each other. So today we had a lot of discussions about which cards work, which cards don't work. And personally, what affects me and other Russians and Ukrainians, that if you have a like Visa or MasterCard from one of the Russian and Ukrainian banks, you could not pay with them here in Bali.
And that's just started now, has it?
Yeah, that already happened. There are workarounds. We could fix all of the issues, but it is a little bit inconvenient. Well, the second thing is the ruble plummeting. Well, really, it lost like 10, 15, or maybe 20% by now.
Yeah, I mean, it looked a little bit more stable today from what I've seen. I was quite surprised to see, because I'd expected that fall to continue. But actually, just looked at the charts just before we started today, and it's certainly nowhere near as bad as I expected it to be at this point.
The thing is that Russian central bank is pouring money into supporting ruble, because they have been there after Crimea when it kind of halved. And now they don't want to have the same scenario. And right now, the prerequisites, the grounds for falling are much harsher than it was before. So I believe it can fall much further down. So they are pouring their reserves. I don't know how they call it in English. Gold and currency reserves.
Treasury reserves. I mean, Putin's known to have, there are a lot of reserves. I mean, Putin's been building these up, hasn't he, over the last few years, actually, and actually reducing the reliance on the dollar as well. I mean, you know, you can get full conspiracy theory about this and say this was being planned for years in advance, and it's possible actually it may well have been, because he was anticipating full economic sanction retribution, because obviously it's very difficult for NATO to actually engage on this without really starting something very messy. So there's not much they can do other than this economic approach. And it does sound like Putin's been ready for that, at least to some degree.
Yeah. So, now they're pouring money into that. I don't know how long they can hold it, really, because everybody's getting rid of ruble. So,
just stop you there, Max. You said everyone's getting rid of rubles. What do you mean by that?
Even Russian citizens, everyone anticipates high inflation and that ruble will continue falling. And my mom had some savings in rubles. She, like, her first question was like, when we talked, should I buy dollars?
Can you buy dollars in Russia? I mean, is there something you can do?
That is what you can do, but today or like yesterday, it was not the best time to do that, because like ATMs were empty on dollars or euros, and the exchange booths are also empty.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So that I didn't know. So that we've already seen in Russia. I suppose that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, it really does. But to actually hear that confirmed is quite a thing.
Yeah, and that's what basically concerns every single Russian person. Well, not all of Russians have savings, and actually Russians are known for having no savings at all.
Well, that's because they're so generous. I mean, we experienced this out in Russia. I mean, I don't know how many drinks they bought for us from various different people we'd never met. I mean, that's one thing that really stuck in my mind. I think that's probably linked to it, actually.
Well, probably, yeah. Financial planning is not our thing. Well, and then everything that we will have to buy, like in the next half a year or year, will be considerably more expensive.
Do you think most Russian people already understand that, or they haven't really thought about it yet?
Actually, dollars, usually dollars is kind of always in Russian mindset as the second currency that you go to when something is going wrong, and something is going wrong quite often in Russia, and we had this like many times, and through the 90s, it was the only way to have anything like stable when there was a time of hyperinflation. And by the way, if we are talking about the fall of like stock market, Russian stock market, which lost like 40-45% in a day, which is a crazy amount. I remember the biggest fall in Russian stock exchange. It was in 1997. It is known as Black Friday, and it was 20%.
Wow.
Now we lost 45.
Yeah. I mean, that puts into context for you, doesn't it? Just how unbelievable that is. I mean, let's talk a bit about this actually, because you are a businessman. You have a thriving business in Siberia, in Irkutsk, and I've physically been there. I've seen the operation, and it is it's a fabulous operation. I mean, do you have any concerns that Russian authorities may come in and cause problems for you? I know in your case, because I've worked with you for quite some time. I mean, your business, Cyberian Mine, has always been very focused on making sure the paperwork is correct, that the right taxes are paid, and we have total peace of mind that the equipment that is there in this mining operation is, all accounted for correctly and is there correctly. So you've always made sure you've been on the right side of the law in Russia, which we should point out some other operators don't really do sometimes and come unstuck. But in your case, it's
not that common.
Yeah. In your case, we know that you're fully legitimate, so everything is in order. In theory, you should be completely fine as you're operating within the law. I mean, do you anticipate any issues from your perspective?
Well, there are a few concerns that I'm having right now. So first of all, we have German legal entity that owns Russian legal entity, and there are lots of internal payments, internal for our business, but for Russia and Germany, it is considered as an external payment.
Of course, yeah.
So from German bank account, we transfer money to Russian bank account, vice versa. And if SWIFT will be switched off, then I don't know really how shall we solve it. It is solvable for sure. So probably we will use some crypto to do that. And even though the legal state of crypto in Russia is not yet fully
confirmed. In fact, I've got a question about that for you in a minute, actually, but we'll come back to that. But for now, in terms of at the moment these transfers, because I think you do them quite regularly, don't you? So they at the moment everything's still working as it should, presumably.
Yeah. So far everything is good. Payments are going through. We receive payments from Germany, but that is like one point of concern. Then we receive payments made by credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, even Google Pay and Apple Pay. So that can be like switched off by sanctions. Like instantly.
Yeah, and actually, you have people all around the world, don't you? I mean, you have investors and customers, partners all around the world, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And moreover, we actually have customers from anywhere but Russia. Well, there is a tax reason for that, because when we provide our services to someone outside Russian jurisdictions, then we are exempt from VAT, and that says like 20%, which is like a game changer.
Yeah, makes sense.
Margin voice.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But I mean, because something you touched on there about using crypto, I mean, Bitcoin really is presumably what we're talking about here. I mean, it's interesting the timing of this, because it was only 2 weeks ago, the Russian central bank issued a kind of recommendation that Bitcoin mining should be banned. And actually, I think other Bitcoin related activity. And then the Kremlin only a few days later completely turned that around and said, actually, no, we're going to support Bitcoin mining. And actually, Irkutsk was one of the regions they specified in that kind of official release. There were two others, I forget what they were now. But some have said, and then of course we've had this bill about making crypto and Bitcoin especially legal within the country, or having a clear legal framework for that. I mean, the rules are a little bit odd. I don't know if you've read the detail on the February the 18th bill details, but there's all these kind of tests that citizens have to do to see if they understand it well enough to buy it. I'm not sure how well that'll work, but we will see. But what's interesting, because people have kind of jumped to this conclusion that this happened just before Ukraine. Is this another attempt by Putin to try and get around sanctions by making it easier for people to use Bitcoin within the country? I think it's a bit of a big jump to a conclusion there, but I'd just be interested in your view on that.
Well, I can say that this line of thinking also came to my mind, and I was really thinking that it could help to resolve some of the issues, not only for me as a business that needs cross-border transfers to be made, but also for Russia. So now this war creates it skews the economical situation, and with prices of some assets like oil and gas going up, and some of like my friends say, oh, that's the reason why Putin is doing. And in the beginning, I was answering no, no, that anyways doesn't make any sense. Yeah, oil and gas, high price, yeah, it's good for Russia, but if you cannot sell it to anyone, it doesn't make sense. But now, if you take into consideration Bitcoin, like a clearer roadmap to regulation of crypto and making it like legal, well, it is a conspiracy theory, of course. We don't know what's going on in their minds, but it could be a way to solve their problems as well.
Yeah, although I mean, it's only, this legalization's only just happened, so it would imply there must have been some more conversations before this, because it's interesting, because you're probably aware that just, I think it was last week, Ukraine approved their law to legalize Bitcoin in their country. And it actually is, I don't know actually if it was signed off, because it then went to the president's desk, and you know, the poor guy's got enough to deal with right now than signing a piece of paper legalizing Bitcoin and crypto. But the timing of those two I thought was quite interesting, although of course it could be just a coincidence. I know that Ukraine's been working on theirs since September, but we'll wait and see. I mean, the role of Bitcoin, though, has, I think, been elevated here, because we've got this situation in Russia where Putin's trying to, and he's legalizing it. You may have noticed that CNBC in particular have been reporting quite a large number of donations coming in via Bitcoin to the country of Ukraine. And to me, that's just another use case for Bitcoin. And we saw this in Canada as well with the donations to the truckers there. I mean, just from your perspective, how do you think this affects the future of Bitcoin going forward from this point?
I actually read your article about wars and Bitcoins.
Okay, yeah.
And and yeah, and Actually,
It's suddenly
totally
more
agree.
relevant now. It's suddenly got a lot more relevant if you're in Ukraine. It really does. I'll put the link to that in the show notes so people can see that one later on. Sorry, Max.
Yeah. So the war is affecting currency, affecting economics, affecting everything. And Bitcoin is one of the ways to mitigate it and help solving the issues that can be caused by war. If we take, for example, what is already happening, like Ukraine has limited its citizens from withdrawing more than 100,000 hryvnias. That is kind of what governments do. They control money, and Bitcoin is clearly a way to avoid that. It's unconfiscatable.
Yes, exactly right. Well done. I mean, I wrote an article yesterday just talking about the economics of this and the role of Bitcoin going forward. And I did wonder what would have happened had this happened, say, 5 years from now, where Bitcoin was considered a far more mature asset. I mean, whether we would have seen kind of a more or less instant move to Bitcoin, because it's still, Bitcoin's still quite small, isn't it, in terms of the world stage. I mean, do you have any commentary on it? I mean, how would it have been different, do you think, if it had been a few years later?
Well, absolutely, it would resolve like most of the problems or concerns that all Russians and Ukrainians citizens are experiencing about their money, and me as a businessman, all the issues that I voiced, that would be easily solvable or already solved. That is for sure. So and if we are talking, like one of the main arguments like of conventionalists against Bitcoin is that it's too volatile. Yes, Bitcoin sometimes falls like a couple dozen percent in a day. Look at Russian stock market. 45% down. Look at Russian ruble or Ukrainian hryvnia. Look at all the other currencies that are not always more stable. So if we replaced all these currencies with Bitcoin, it would become more stable. Definitely more stable than currencies, especially in the regions that are involved in some conflicts or wars.
I guess we won't know at this stage. But look, Max, it's been great talking to you. I mean, I feel like I could speak to you, or at least listen to you all day with some of the viewpoints you've given us today. So I just want to say I'm really grateful for you taking the time out. I mean, I've learned a lot today. It's been really interesting hearing it from your point of view. We're only 48 hours into this thing. I'm sure you agree with me. More than anything else, we just want to make sure everyone is fine. We don't want this getting any messier than it already is. So, I mean, I stand in solidarity with Ukraine. I assume you do too. And, I hope we can find a peaceful way through on this. So, Max, thank you very much. I mean, is there anything else today that you wanted to mention particularly before we sign off today?
No, thank you very much Jason, for having me. I'm not that eloquent or don't have that much expertise in any of the topics that I was talking about. But still, I want to give the main message that Putin is not Russia. Russia is not Putin, and that's the main takeaway. So I guess I'm going back to my ordinary daily stuff, and probably I'll start with sending some YouTube video links to my mother.
Yes, that sounds like it might be a sensible idea. Well, listen, anyway, Max, thank you so much again, and I'm sure we'll speak soon. So, and until then, take care. Speak to you later. Cheers, Max. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.